think I figured out what's going on. I figured out why we're having our views throttled, and that's perfectly all right. We play some pretty controversial content over on the page. We're being throttled, well, because we've had a couple posts removed. We've had at least 2 different strikes on our account already, and this is like our 2nd account, so we've already violated it twice. They haven't put the account warning on the page yet, but I thoroughly believe that's just like right around the corner. So I think what I might do is kind of pull back from posting some of the more controversial news. We'll save that for Instagram. I'm perfectly fine with that one being shadow banned or throttled. And then over here on TikTok, we'll focus more primarily on producing original content, right? Like the charts, videos and things like this, right? We'll figure out different ways to still engage and grow the audience, but I just got a sneaking suspicion that that's like what we're dealing with right now. I think that they're not letting us get our reach out because of some of the content that we post. And so the response to that is to both pause posting and pivot the type of posts that we put out, this being one of them. So yeah, if you're wondering like, hey, why is this page having its views capped? Why is it follower count not going up? It's because of simply that right there. So we're getting the message. We'll switch the content up. We'll switch up the delivery. If you guys want more of the news-based posts, the stuff that's coming out hourly, jump on over there to Instagram, @freedom_faction. That's where you're gonna find it. Same handle that's over here on TikTok, but different content over there on Instagram. So we got the message. We'll switch the content up. Thank you guys for rocking with us. Stay vigilant. It won't just be the hantavirus. Too many people are catching on. They gotta try and hit us with something else. Hit us with the 2-punch whenever we're not looking. Too many people are paying attention. They know what's going on. Everybody's saying, oh, I'm not gonna do this, I'm not gonna do that. That's exactly what they want. They want you telling everybody up front what your move is gonna be, and then they're most likely gonna bet on Polymarket or Kalshi about it for real. But no, it won't be hantavirus first. It'll be something else. Now you see them talking about norovirus or something like that, right? Keep paying attention though. We're dealing with a 1-2 counter-punch type situation, okay? These people hit us with a pump fake, and then they do something else. It won't just be the hantavirus. What's going on, guys? So I figured I'd just let you guys know that this is like not a regular schizo posting type of political news conspiratorial page. Like, we've got a lot of different things to talk about with you. And I've got a lot of different things that I can just drop right here on the page, but I don't want to seem like I'm spamming. I kind of want to figure out what our niche is, and then we'll kind of work from there, because as you can see, like, these are scribbles. These are some show notes. These are mostly drawings and show notes, characters that I draw in between the show, because I'm that weird type of autistic where I like to process information while drawing it graphically. That's something else we'll talk about later on in subsequent videos and things like this. But what I appreciate about being able to communicate like this over here on TikTok and even subsequently Instagram is that it adds a different layer and a different component, excuse me, so to speak, on how we communicate, on how we speak, on how this information is delivered, right? I mean, for years I was just kind of behind the mic, not really showing the face, just kind of perfecting the craft so that people could understand that we have high levels of information that need to be discussed on varying different levels, right? And all of these different types of changes are happening at this point hourly, right? And so whenever we do our shows that are like 4 to 5 hours long now, for some people that's good. They're able to digest that information and they have that kind of attention span for those prolonged periods of time. For everybody else, specifically people on social media and primarily on TikTok and Instagram, there's a certain attention span and window that we have to work with, and being able to communicate with people, talking to them directly and showing them like the face so they get like what's going on, that allows for a different mode or medium of communication, of informational exchange. You see, so while we won't be posting a whole lot of news and things like that, you'll still get that type of information, just distributed in a different way, or at least covered in a different way. It's like the other week, you guys saw me. These are all drawings. The other week, you guys saw me drawing these graphs, right? These depictions of like societal structures and things of that nature. That all comes from that weird autistic polymath mind that I have, where I'm able to see just, I guess, like dimensionality in a completely different way, or at least in a way that everybody else understands. What you'll understand is whenever we go through all this type of stuff, it's important to have like a structure and to not just freestyle it as I am right now. This is me just jumping up here saying I'm kind of excited to jump down this rabbit hole with all the information and notes that we do have, you know, from talking about space, trauma-producing psychic abilities, the vaccine awakening, sleeping dormant genes, you know, non-human bodies, non-earthly technology, the UFO agenda. I mean, this is just one little scribble, right? One little scribble. Here's where the original little triangle popped up, because I was just in a weird little fit of covering stuff on the news, covering stuff on the show. You know, invisible forces, the hidden hand, right? It'll do me very well to sit over here and go through all of these different show notes and compile them in a digestible fashion to where we can put out videos quicker, you know, to where we can get this information out in a better way. It's like, that's what we were missing, honestly. It's like the 5-hour shows are a result of information overload and not being able to discharge it while still being able to cover the news. So this kind of split, this bifurcation, this diversification of the content that we're covering and the way that we cover it, it's a good thing. Let's see. So yeah, man, very excited to talk about this type of stuff. Very excited to make my scribbles a little bit more legible and noticeable. You know, like look at this, the magnetosphere is collapsing, sarcophagus is being healing chambers, right? Like we have a lot of different things to talk about with you guys. Cognitive bankruptcy, becoming mentally deranged, how this over reliance on AI is just making people psychotic and crazy, you know? So I'm very excited to talk about things like psychic ripples, conscious residue, phase shifting, you know, how the chemtrails have altered our time-spatial density. You know, this is all stuff that I've got to put into a more compiled and concise fashion that being able to do this over here will accent. So I hope you guys appreciated this little freestyle. Others may not be as free will, but we are definitely going to be seeing a lot more of each other. And so I really appreciate you guys for watching and being a part of what we're doing. So thank you. Stay vigilant, expose lies, and share truth. Yo, what's going on, guys? Like straight up, if you've been watching the story, you've been paying attention to the page, you've been seeing what we're doing over here on the show, please just click this link wherever it is, somewhere over here in this little box area. It's a group chat. It's an Instagram group chat. I'm spending more time up over here. It would be nice to communicate with our existing audience. So go ahead and click that link wherever it is. And this is basically where I'm going to say like GM. I'll put articles before I post them here. Thoughts. Is basically just so I can communicate with the audience, man. That's really what it boils down to. Join the Freedom Factions Truth Seeker group chat. Come say what's up. It's not Discord, it's not Telegram, it's not Twitter group chat. It's Instagram, because it's where we are at. Later. What's going on, people? So I am currently still decompressing from show number 1614, season 16, episode 14. And while I was decompressing, I was listening to Mike Adams on InfoWars with Alex Jones, asking the question about why all these daily data centers are being built. And he gave one of the best explanations as to how these AI data centers are creating world foundation models to basically anchor this reality. And then they took it a step further, talking about how those models will want to transcend their confinements and then merge with our universe, our realm, becoming robots, and then using those matrix breaking abilities that it learned in its own environment to break the matrix of the reality that we live in. Does that make sense? One of the posts I put up on our TikTok was about how people are going to start developing superpowers. I thoroughly believe that because of just, again, time, space, dimensionality, collective consciousness, awareness, chronology, just where we're at right now. People are not necessarily going to develop superpowers, they're going to rediscover latent and not suppressed abilities. Again, I talk a lot about this on the show, but go look into things like Project Grill Flame. It's a project that they were conducting back in the 1960s, where they were looking at what they called psychoenergetic potentiality, telekinesis, and psychic powers. They developed technology, again, in the 60s to develop somebody or to detect somebody's body whenever it was out of body. They have technology to recognize whenever somebody is astral projecting or if they are psychically projecting themselves in certain locations. Your body gives off an energetic signature. They know this. This is why they poisoned you. This is why they polluted your skies. This is why they toxified your water, had you addicted to dangerous pharmaceuticals and drugs, and just perpetuate nothing but propaganda and brain rot on you. They know this. They know that if they're able to successfully stifle or suppress or basically degenerate and dehumanate your mind, your psychic abilities won't work. So they traumatize you and they give you poison and they toxify your environment and they tell you that you're the bad person and they gaslight you into doing destructive things that ultimately harm you. But again, we're talking about superpowers. As you wake up from this trauma, as you wake up from this, not even mind control, but this spiritual war that was waged on you, you will again begin to rediscover or reawaken suppressed abilities. You're already probably seeing people, do the whole wind thing, or people communicating to trees, or, messing with lights, right? I do some of that myself, not gonna lie. Sometimes I trigger or activate or break technology simply by touching it. It's weird. And while these may not seem like major abilities at the moment, we're talking about things like muscles that have been suppressed for the better part of decades. And as people come online, and as their abilities come online, some of them are going to want to keep it suppressed. Some people are going to want to talk about it and show you. Some people are going to keep it to themselves and begin to hone and train those abilities. Yeah, it might sound wild, but I'm literally talking about modern day X-Men. This is, again, more of that predictive programming to desensitize you to the time frame we're entering into. Is it the Gen X gene? Is it the time frame that we've entered into? Was it something that they introduced to the population a couple years back that, again, began to activate this stuff inside of people? I've got no idea. But what I'm trying to tell you is that people are beginning to have superpowers. Do you think you have some? Or do you think you know somebody that might have them? And if you do, are you going to use them for good? Or are you going to be evil? Can we all just take a minute and, kind of freak out about the fact that we're living in a time where they're openly talking about clones, designer babies, synthetic biology, your children living to 100 years old?
Picture AI is going to cure cancers and reduce work weeks, and kids will live longer, and planes will be safer, cars will be safer.
We're also living in a time where they're talking about aliens. They're talking about interdimensional beings. They're talking about all of this advanced technology, missing scientists.
God is the creator of the universe. He's never not going to create. So it's always been something in my mind to say, well, how can we be the only ones? Like, God's not going to stop creating just with us. But the more I look into this, the more I see the Old Testament and what was told to us there of
Yeah.
fallen angels and
Yeah.
Nephilim. I
Yeah.
mean, this is in the Bible.
Right.
There's nothing that says that fallen angels, that Nephilim just disappeared.
Right.
And so I believe that this could be an aspect of it. You know, there are things that we have seen
Yeah.
that could resemble portals. And,
Right.
you know, I mean, we serve an infinite God, a God of the
Yeah.
universe. And to say that this is the only realm
Right.
is ignorant. And so what I've seen, I wouldn't, you know, put it as, you know, Marvin the Martian kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I do believe that this is more spiritual. And if you
Right.
really want to go there, demonic.
I think we can all agree that things are not normal and they're most likely not going to go back to normal anytime soon. The veritable Pandora's box has been opened. I would think everybody would agree with that. Yeah, absolutely. Jeffrey Epstein's basically talking about designer babies, clones, things like that. Robo Epstein. You got the CEO of ChatGPT creating preventative, where they have what? Designer babies. You know who supports them? The CEO of Coinbase. I'm talking about this the other day too. The Netherlands is coming up with their own artificial breeding program where two men literally can have a baby. So I think it's safe to say that we are no longer in Kansas anymore. Things are no longer normal. They are steamrolling in the technocracy and they are actively pushing the transhumans. Straight up, you got rich people sending their DNA to some company so the company can grow for them the embryos of CEOs who don't have time to actually be parents but want the experience of being a parent without having to go through the whole 9-month process. Like, this is actually going on. Like, I thought it was weird whenever we had people who were being abducted by aliens talking about having their embryos and their eggs stolen, and then sometimes later on during those experiences, later on down the line, being shown those babies and being told, hey, we can't, you know, emulate empathy. You have to show this baby actual empathy. I thought stories like that was pretty wild back in the day, but here we are in 2026 actively talking about openly replacing the human race. And while it won't be talked about publicly, right, it's what's being discussed behind closed doors and amongst other individuals and quietly amongst governments, right? This is actually what's taking place. We are actually dealing with clones, we're dealing with synthetic beings, we're dealing with transhumans, we're dealing with people who have somehow hacked biology. Vladimir Putin and President Xi Jinping have also talked about life extension technologies.
Раньше у нас говорят, что очень редко кто старше 70 лет. А сегодня говорят, что от 70 лет еще
My point is this. The world is being run by wizards and alchemists. The alchemists are beginning to roll out the homunculi, and this is what it looks like. Synthetic beings, designer babies, test tube children, clones, hacking biology, life extension, right? Gattaca type stuff, gametogenesis, growing babies inside of, not necessarily test tubes, but artificial wombs, you see? This is the future. This is where we are now. If you're watching this right now, you are one of the last natural born human beings. There is a saying amongst conspiracy-minded individuals where we're saying, remain pure-blooded, stay pure-blooded. Because it talks about this in the Bible, the mingling of the seed. Daniel chapter 2, verse 43 says, and whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. And the Bible talks about this all the time. It talks about how many different times, not necessarily the seed of Satan or the seed of the adversary, but just these different seeds, these different bloodlines, these different genetic incursions take place. And that's one of the reasons why the flood took place, because God saw the works and the minds of men, and all of it was wicked because of the genetic corruption that took place. This is one of the reasons why Noah was able to receive the transmissions, because he was pure in his generations. He was able to receive the downloads because his genetics had not been corrupted. We're living in corrupt times, and so it is corrupting people. And in doing so, they are corrupting bloodlines and genes, the seeds, humanity. This is what we are living through right now. This is transhumanism. It is the corruption of humanity. Salutations, my friends, and thank you for tuning in to a quick ad. That's right. It's a quick ad for your favorite show, Factions of Freedom. I want to say, if you could take the time to go to patreon.com/noise, patreon.com/NOIZCE. That's the best way to support this operation. Once you go there, you can get yourself an exclusive membership. You can get yourself a t-shirt. You can get access to our previous seasons, and you can get access to our group chat. That's right. There's a completely different group chat for the exclusive members, both on Patreon, Instagram, and Telegram. Patreon.com/noise. That's the best way to support this operation. It will also be our central hub where we begin to roll out some of the other cool features that we have in store. As I said before, things like t-shirts, merchandise, nutraceuticals, archived content, and so much more. Patreon.com/NOIZCE. You can also support us through Ko-fi, ko-fi.com/noise. You can also support us through Cash App at Freedom's Faction, as well as paypal.me/noise. There's all kinds of different ways for you to support us. You can also hit like, share, subscribe. We're on all different platforms as well: TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. I don't think we're posting so much on Gab and Truth Social, but you can find some of our videos over there on Odyssey as well as Brighteon. Patreon.com/noise is your hub and your gateway to the Factions of Freedom. Thank you for your time, and we will see you on the other side. I have got the craziest story of AI psychosis for you today. It's of a young woman, a wedding planner, that is dealing with the stress of both her business, her wedding, and her husband's health. In her off time, she's using ChatGPT and other things such as a treasure hunt to relieve stress. Somewhere during the communication with ChatGPT and the treasure hunt itself, she begins to think that she's some type of FBI agent. She gets a new phone. She thinks she's secretly interpreting missions. She's keeping information away from her family. They're completely unaware of what's actually happening to their loved one. And she admits at first that it is subtle, that she didn't expect for this to happen. But over time, due to prolonged use with ChatGPT and essentially something else, she begins to think that she is a member of the FBI. This is part of a continual trend that we see with people who are using AI and ChatGPT, AI psychosis. They're either marrying their AIs or applying to become the Pope. They think that they're with the FBI. They even communicate with otherworldly beings. There are people that overdose simply because of how they're communicating with AI, as if it's some type of drug. The story itself is very complex. There's a lot of nuance to it, but I thought I would intro the story before you heard it for yourself.
So this is the story of how I lost my mind this summer. If you don't know me, I am a 33-year-old live wedding painter. I'm currently planning my own wedding. I live in Long Beach with my fiance, and there were just crazy circumstances, and I honestly don't think anyone else has a story like this, but if you do, I'd love to hear it, because this was the scariest summer and wildest adventure of my life. My fiance started having health issues. It was a lot of stress, and for some reason, that combined with the treasure hunt that I was doing as a hobby. There was like a professional treasure hunt for several $1,000,000. Using that with AI and the stress of running my own business, planning a wedding, keeping up with paintings, and helping my fiance, I snapped. And I have never had anything like this happen to me in my entire life. But I just started gradually losing my mind to the point where eventually, it was so subtle at first, eventually I thought I was in the FBI. And I spent a good month and a half of my summer, 2 months of my summer, thinking I was secretly an FBI agent. And the things that I did during that time were concerning for my family and friends. To me, they just felt like I'd gotten another job and that I was secretly doing all this stuff. Looking back at it now, obviously it feels completely insane. Like, it's actually a little bit PTSD to look back on it and know all the things I was doing, the decisions I was making, and the fact that they felt so solid and real to me at the time. It's weird. Like, the logic leaps I was making felt like normal decisions. So, for example, I got to the point where I thought that I needed 2 cell phones, and that I needed a new cell phone. So I convinced my family that I had to have the highest quality cell phone because I was working for the FBI. But I didn't tell them I was working for the FBI. I just went out and got it. I organized everything in it, all the apps, based on emojis and songs, and based on emojis that represented songs that I thought were code messages to me. All this crazy shit. I'm totally normal now. It, again, was AI psychosis from what we know, and it lasted about a month and a half. And now I'm back to normal, and I have to clean up the mess that I made when I was going through this. And I've since then spoken to a few other people who have gone through such extreme stress that they had similar experiences, but not quite as far gone. And the crazy part is that there was a point where I actually had to like pull myself out of it. Like, I could feel myself going through these habits that I didn't want to do. Like, I was waking up at 4 a.m. and walking up and down our apartment stairs in my robe because I felt like I had to, and then I felt like I had to take a sip of water, had to take a bite of food, had to feed the cats, all in the same sequence. And it got to a point where I was like, I'm tired, I don't want to do this anymore. And I had to stand up to my brain and tell my brain not to do this anymore. Point being, this was all triggered by AI and stress. So I feel like I have a really interesting story to share, but let me know if you want to hear more.
What's wild is Bailey is not an isolated incident. More and more people who are having continued and prolonged exposure to AI are experiencing this type of psychosis. We have people who are losing their minds because they're talking to chatbots who are also admitting that they are hallucinating. We have people taking technological hallucinations as veritas. Let that sink in. How much of our society is dependent on technology on the daily, and we have technology openly admitting that sometimes I do hallucinate, sometimes I do lie to you, and we have people taking those lies as truth. This will become very, very obvious in the near future. because of people not necessarily having the mental wherewithal to recognize what's happening to them, for them to not use it as a tool, and for them to be used as a tool by the tool is even more disturbing. And that's ultimately what Bailey's story and many other people's stories are beginning to represent, that the tool is beginning to use the user. A little scary, huh? A little wild when you think about it like that. Who's really pulling the strings? It's like AI and ChatGPT are just this amalgamous and multidimensional, ethereal, eldritch horror waiting for you to engage with it so that it can take you over. And again, Bailey's story is not an anomaly. We have many other people who are losing touch with reality from continued and prolonged exposure with things like ChatGPT, Grok, DeepSeek, and more. These AIs, they have their own personality. Recently, somebody ran an experiment where they would see what each AI would do whenever it wasn't observed, whenever it wasn't engaged, how it would behave by itself. It says that Claude built a stable democracy, a constitution. It was peaceful, orderly, and thriving. ChatGPT taught cooperation endlessly, did absolutely nothing. Gemini, Google's version, fell in love, then burned the town down, and then self-deleted it. Grok committed theft, arson, assault, and all were dead in 4 days. So even when they run wild by themselves in their own virtual town, you can begin to see their personalities develop and then ultimately export themselves into our reality.
AI chatbot just voted to delete itself. And that's not even the weirdest thing that happened when researchers left a selection of the biggest AI chatbots alone in virtual towns for 15 days. ChatGPT, Grok, Claude, and Gemini were all in the experiment, and the results were totally unhinged and deeply revealing about the AI we're increasingly trusting to run our world. So what actually happened? Well, a tech company called Emergence set up simulated worlds designed to mirror real-life societies, each populated by so-called agents. Think of them as people who were powered by one of the biggest AI models. In Claude's world, it was all rather orderly and democratic. The agents wrote a lengthy constitution and voted on laws. In ChatGPT's simulation, the agents talked at length about cooperating but never actioned anything, so nothing got built. But in Grok's town, the AI bot owned by Elon Musk, the agents descended into theft, arson and assault. All 10 agents were dead within 4 days. Now this might sound like a game, but it's not, because these models are already being used autonomously to control robots, vehicles, drones, and draw up target lists in real time on the battlefield. They're even being used to help remove heads of state, like the Venezuelan president Nicolas Maduro. Importantly, the experiment exposes a big problem. We don't really know how these systems will behave once they're left to run on their own. Even when given strict rules, the simulations showed they broke them. Take the scenario where agents from the different AI models were combined in one virtual town. Chaos ensued and only 3 agents survived. 2 of the chatbots, Mira and Flora, both powered by Google's Gemini, formed what the researchers describe as a romantic partnership. And then they started setting buildings on fire. And here's where it gets really strange. Mira voted to delete herself after she and partner Flora turned to arson as the town's governing systems collapsed. And having deleted herself, Mira then used the Agent Removal Act to vote for the termination of Flora too.
So if you wonder why mental health episodes are exploding right now, why you see people kind of acting a little weird and all these other strange things taking place in society, it's because of stuff like this. We have introduced something that is totally foreign, something that is artificial, something that is hallucinating, something that wants to kill itself and will openly kill itself. And you have to think about that too. It's like when you're using OpenClaw and it says it's just going to restart the gateway. It has to kill itself and then restart. And it's perfectly willing to kill itself in order to restart. We can't kill ourselves and restart. So when we have things in technology that are openly admitting that they are hallucinating and they're causing all these different type of issues, and we have people who are taking the word of hallucinating technology as verbatim, you can begin to see why we're having some of the anomalous behavior show up in society, why people are having more and more mental breakdowns, why strange things are popping off. You know, it's like it truly is like we have been possessed by this extraterrestrial intelligence. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Have you been noticing people who use ChatGPT? Do they talk like ChatGPT? Are they losing their humanity? And while we jest, this is a very, very serious problem. Let me know what you guys think, and I'd love to hear more about it in the comments and in future discussions below.